You're listening to the Fast F1 podcast. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Fast F1 podcast with me, Danny Kane.
And I'm Eddie Meteye-O'Kane.
Today we are reviewing the last two races of the season. We did not have time in our busy schedule to be able to record after the Qatar Grand Prix, so it ended up having to wait until after the final race weekend of the season at Abu Dhabi. The championship is over. We already knew Verstappen had won the Drivers' Championship, but there was a Constructors' Championship to settle
Between Ferrari and McLaren. So it was basically a dead-on fight between my favorite team.
and my favorite team.
Exactly.
So we'll get into all of that, but first let's go into the Qatar Grand Prix. And I actually don't honestly remember a lot about that race other than that Norris let Piastri go by during the sprint race
Which was
after the last
crazy.
right after the last corner. He pulled over and let Piastri go by, despite the fact that the team had asked him not to.
Yeah, but that's all right at the end of the sprint. The beginning of the sprint weekend, Qatar is a sprint weekend. It was the last one of the year. For starters, Perez knocked out in SQ1. He started from the pits and had a really, really slow getaway.
Yeah, he had a strange start where, according to him, he was intentionally going slowly to let Colapinto go by so that he could just use that race for data gathering. And then Horner afterwards was like, yeah, we got to figure out why he took his time like that, leaving the pits. I don't know if Horner wasn't aware of it or I don't know, but I tend to think that Perez was telling the truth, that he really was just, knowing that he was going to be way at the back, just gathering data for the race, for the Grand Prix the next day. Given the circumstances, Red Bull played it right. They used that as a test session to gather data to help, I'm sure, just both Perez and Verstappen. Verstappen ended up being a large beneficiary of that because he won the Grand Prix the next day. But and Perez did fare a lot better in the Grand Prix. But that's not anything. I don't think they did anything wrong or conspiratorial as a.
Well, it did quite definitely affect Colapinto's run. He was forced to pass him right on the pit exit.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a strange moment, but it didn't really affect his race at all.
It was a very good scrap for one lap between Hamilton and Leclerc. I remember that. There was some contact from one point. It was an amazing move in the end. I found it really interesting. But in
the sprint you're talking about.
Yeah. But
the big part.
The big part is the three-way battle for that sprint victory, which was insane.
Yeah, so Russell was caught up behind
race.
Piastri. Piastri couldn't pull away from Russell and knew he couldn't. And so with Norris out ahead of him, Norris kept slowing down to give Piastri the DRS the entire race. The only reason McLaren got a 1-2 out of it was because Lando's pace was so quick that he was able to back off specifically to help Piastri.
It seemed like it was getting really slow. For a moment, I thought, I believe P4 was Leclerc at the time. Mm-hmm. I thought he could have even caught up to that. Actually, no, I think it was Sainz, actually. But I believe Sainz could even catch up to them and win at that rate.
He was up there, but I don't recall which Ferrari it was, but they were, whoever it was there, but not really in contention. I think if Russell had gotten past Piastri would have dropped down the order.
Sure.
Several positions.
For sure.
But in the end, he won the sprint race.
He won the sprint race on the last corner.
Because Norris pulled over for him. And I know Russell afterwards was saying something about that's not very good for the fans, and he didn't like how that race was. But that if he was in Piastri's shoes,
he would be so grateful.
Yeah, if it was Hamilton and Russell 1 and 2 pulling that strategy, as my alarm is going off here, if it were Russell and Hamilton 1 and 2, and they were in the same situation, absolutely Russell would have done that. He did it already when he was a Williams driver.
That's true.
He I don't remember the race, but I remember there was a race where he was saying to the team, make sure to prioritize Latifi's race so that they could maximize their points that they were going to get. And so, yeah, absolutely, he knows how the drill is. You do whatever you can to maximize the team's outcome, and that's what the team did.
I believe that was 2020.
I don't remember what it was, but
point.
it was the first points that Williams was going to score in a long time, and Russell was of the opinion that they should sacrifice his race to help Latifi. I think they kind of did. I don't remember, but
either
way, that's how that all worked out. So Russell gets it, I'm sure, and I think when he reflected on it, he probably would have thought the same thing. Like, I would have done the same thing.
Anyway,
so in the Grand Prix, then.
Yep. So Verstappen did qualify on pole position, but due to, according to the FIA, unnecessarily slow driving or something along those lines, and impeding George Russell, even though he wasn't really even on a flying lap, he was given a one-place grid penalty. Conveniently, George Russell started on pole position.
Yeah, and I know that a whole argument between the two of them kind of kicked off after that, where they were... Verstappen was really angry about how that all went down. I actually have not seen the footage of the incident between the two of them, so I have no opinion on it. I know that a lot of people do, and they kind of feel like that was a crap penalty.
Yeah, I have seen it. I feel like it's a crap penalty as well.
I'll just leave it at that I haven't seen it, and it obviously didn't affect anything because Verstappen got past Russell at the start of the race and then took off.
Yep, he did indeed. Norris tried really hard to take the lead from both of them, though. He did only overtake George Russell, which means Russell's qualified second, started first, fell to third within the opening lap.
Yeah, the only real difference is that maybe another car or two could have gotten past Russell at the start if he'd had the same start from second. But
it could have been Hamilton.
In Verstappen's case, it wasn't. It ended up kind of not being a penalty because he overcame the penalty by the first lap or by the first corner of the first lap.
Well, it could have been Hamilton because he jump started.
Hamilton did jump start. And he received a 10-second penalty, I believe.
I can't remember if he even received a penalty or not. I can't remember.
I don't know. I know that Norris got a 10-second stop-go penalty.
Hamilton had a terrible Qatar Grand Prix. So many incidents.
Yeah.
Punctures, speeding in the pit lane, all sorts of stuff.
And Norris had a sloppy race. Well, he didn't actually. He was on...
Well, he was, but...
He was on Verstappen's heels. Honestly, I think that if Norris hadn't not seen the yellow flag and therefore gotten a penalty, I do think that Norris would have won that race.
Yes.
Because he was right with Verstappen the whole way, and then through the pit stop sequence, I think he would have... We've seen it all year long that once they get onto low fuel, the McLaren
is so fast.
It comes alive. It's like in as Zandvoort. Fast. Well, it's as fast as any of the cars in the early parts of the race, and then it's faster on low fuel.
It's like Zandvoort, where when he had the false start, or not false start, but when he had the super slow start, Verstappen took it immediately. But like 20 laps later, Norris zoomed into the lead and extended that advantage by a lot.
But and we, like I said, we saw it all year long where the McLaren was better on low fuel than any of the other cars, for sure.
Yeah, lots of chaos during lap one, though. Two separate incidents. First one of which between Colapinto and Ocon, along with Nico Hülkenberg, who dive-bombed them. Hülkenberg still ran in the race, but both Ocon and Colapinto were out of the race. A bit of air for Colapinto. Both front tires suspension were broken on Ocon's car, I noticed, which was crazy. I did not see that before, I don't think. The second incident was between Stroll and Albon. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that one I have seen, and I don't think Stroll really did anything wrong in that case.
I really did.
He did, yeah. He got in an incident. It was a racing incident. And it's not the sort of thing that I can get angry at Stroll for as much as I would like to, because I think he's I think his time in F1 should have ended by now, but
a long time before now.
But all the same, that one, fair enough. That he just made a mistake. They together made a mistake, and that's the end of it. Yeah.
In the end, Stroll did retire from that. Albon continued on, I believe. After all of that chaos, there was a safety car. And on the restart lap, Lawson and Bottas get caught up in an incident, even though Lawson was the one who actually looked like he was doing the right thing. He was given a 10-second time penalty for causing the collision. The FIA this race were absolutely, they were busy.
They were busy, but they were
so busy.
They were kind of all over the place.
They were.
But, the Lawson-Bottas one, Lawson's star has not risen as much as people were hoping it would, I think. And that race kind of highlighted it.
I don't know. He's looking like he might get the Red Bull seat.
Yeah, I know, and I don't think that he deserves it myself. I think that Tsunoda deserves it at this point.
I think Tsunoda deserves it as well, but I really want to see Lawson in that seat.
I still want to see Ricciardo in that seat myself.
Well, of course, all of us do, but he's already been dropped. Anyways, George Russell on lap 24 had a terrible pit stop. I think it was 20-ish seconds. So that completely ruined his race. Then we get into the craziness.
Yeah, so then the big moment of the race happened where Albon's mirror fell into the middle of the front straightaway right toward the pit exit, and it took forever for the FIA to do anything about it. And I think
there wasn't even a yellow flag. There was.
There was the local double yellow wave flag. Whatever they call it, double waved yellow flag.
A double yellow.
Whatever it is. Anyway, but I mean, everybody since the race has said, why wasn't there a virtual safety car? Surely the point of the virtual safety car is for exactly that sort of thing. And I remember when that came out, immediately I turned to you and said, oh, that's going to be a virtual safety car.
Yes, he did. And it went on and then off and then on and then off and then on and then off.
Yeah, there was a local yellow that was doing that, but there wasn't a safety car. There wasn't a VSC.
There was never a VSC.
There was not a VSC for it at all. And then, was it Hamilton that ran over it? Or
no, the end, it was Bottas who ran over it.
Bottas ran over it.
His car was completely fine, though.
And then Hamilton and Sainz both had punctures that resulted
within
from it.
the same amount of time. As Alex Jakes was talking about Hamilton's puncture, as soon as he got it, 20 seconds later, Sainz had a puncture.
And, I mean, honestly, the FIA, the stewards were lucky that there wasn't a bigger incident, because that could have been really bad.
Oh yeah, it could have been terrible.
If a car had received severe damage that didn't reveal itself until a high-speed corner,
that's the biggest passing area, whether or not it's for a lapped car or a regular overtake. That's basically the only spot.
Well, and Bottas hit it square with the very middle of the car, but if he had just clipped it with the side of a wheel and sent it flying into the stands,
it could have done so much.
It could have been really bad.
And I know we always see it. It's even though there's debris on the track, it's never that bad. But think of how bad it could be.
Yeah.
Could have
been very bad. It was certainly a bad look for the FIA.
That caused a safety car. Everybody, literally every single driver came into the pits. That was the perfect time for the pit stops. And in the end, Hamilton kind of sped up, kind of braked late, locked up.
So as I understand it, he was on the pit limiter as he got into the speed zone and bumped the pit limiter button, turning it off, and so he sped up, and then he quickly turned it back on and slowed back down.
And Norris was right behind him, so he was kind of getting irritated.
Yeah, so I don't recall exactly the thing with Norris at that point, but
he basically just said
Hamilton
was speeding.
That was my understanding of the speeding penalty, was that he accidentally turned off the pit limiter.
Which gave him another incident, drive-through penalty. So we've seen puncture for Hamilton, drive-through penalty for Hamilton, 10-second time penalty for false start. This was probably one of Hamilton's worst races ever.
Yeah, it was not a good one.
Not
sure
at all.
It wasn't.
Perez loses drive on lap 40 right when the safety car ends. That is driver error. That is not his own fault. Or that is his own fault. That is not the team's fault. That is driver error.
He certainly made it sound after the race as though it was a problem with the car that caused him to spin and lose drive. The team hasn't said for sure one way or the other, but there's a lot of indication that he spun the car and then he burnt out the clutch trying to get going again. So, yeah, his fault
it was
that he was out of the race.
I'm not even going to say it again. It's... Okay, anyways.
So not a fan of Perez being in
No.
F1 still, huh?
No. He was so good in 2020. He was so good in 2021. Ever since then, it's... No. Anyways, lap 46, 10-second stop-and-go penalty. They were saying that's about 35 seconds
Yeah.
of a penalty for Lando Norris.
Yeah, and that's for failing to slow for the local yellow when the mirror was on the track.
And we thought that was completely crazy. We were like the commentators. We thought it was what was it? One of the red and yellow things?
Oh, the
What was it?
the red and yellow flag. I forget what that stands for exactly, but
I
it's
do too.
something about it, like an unsafe track condition or something like that.
Oh, that's
or
right,
debris
yeah.
on track or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, I mean that penalty, fair enough. When in the end, he's got no one to blame but himself.
Yeah. Although we thought otherwise during the race. Anyways, in the end, K-Mag and Albon, amazing fighting. Loved his team radio after he finally got past. But anyways, Max Verstappen does win the race. Zhou Guanyu gets 8th place.
Yeah, eighth place.
Incredible.
8th place for Joe, the Sauber that has been absolutely horrendous all season. He
Oh my
pops
God,
in 8th
yes.
place right before his last race. Speaking of Joe's last race, which would have been Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
So actually, before we move on to Abu Dhabi, we didn't do predictions for Abu Dhabi
We did
because
not.
we didn't record, but we did do predictions for Qatar. So
I almost forgot.
We'll go through those real quick, and they'll be our last ones from the season. So
Yeah.
I had predicted that the finishing order for the Grand Prix would be Norris, Piastri, Leclerc.
None of which were correct, but I was even worse. Hamilton, Norris, Leclerc. Hamilton
so-
and Norris. What an awful race for them.
Yeah, they both had pretty bad races.
Wow.
Norris, where did Piastri finish the Grand Prix? He was
Piastri,
third,
I
wasn't
believe,
he?
finished in, 3rd place.
And Leclerc finished in second place.
Yes, and
So I had those
Verstappen
two
won.
backwards, and I put
Yeah.
Norris for the win when it was Verstappen. So nothing for any of us that way.
Yeah. So,
So now moving on to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
yeah. So you were saying Joe's last race was going to be in Abu Dhabi, which it was. Someone's last race for a team was not in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
It was Qatar. Esteban Ocon dropped by Alpine, 1 race to go in the season. Welcome, Jack Doohan.
Yeah, so the dropping of Ocon, there's
That was a
some.
terrible decision, by the way.
There's. It didn't affect them. You know, they were looking at the Constructors' Championship, and they were satisfied with where they were going to finish. Whether or not it was 6th or 7th, it was 6th in the end.
Yeah. Sadly,
But the whole thing
that
with
was crazy,
Ocon,
though.
the whole thing with Ocon though was entirely based on the bad blood between Ocon and the team, for one.
Oh yeah, ever
and
since
also,
Monaco, yeah.
and also Ocon wanting to be able to drive for Haas in the postseason test, which he did end up doing.
Yes.
But that was the deal that they made, is that he would not drive the last race, and then they would allow him to
Actually,
drive for Haas in the postseason test.
what if I told you that, like, right on the spot, right now, I realized why Jack Doohan actually got the spot for the experienced driver for the postseason test is because of this race right here, which meant that Paul Aaron, who had just recently signed for an Alpine reserve driver, to my surprise, got to test as the junior driver, which I thought that was really interesting to actually use that to get some other driver info.
Well, I mean, maybe, but they already had, some of the teams did have multiple new drivers driving
Well,
that postseason
yes.
test, so
But
they could have done that.
But Doohan was their only reserve driver.
Yeah, I know, but they could have done, if their aim was to get somebody without experience in the car, they could have done that anyway.
They could have.
It was really to do with the fact that Ocon and the team don't get along anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure. Practice drivers. Hajar for Red Bull, Iwasa for RB, Drugovich for Aston. 3 drivers making their debuts. Arthur Leclerc and Charles Leclerc become the first ever brothers to drive in a session as teammates.
No, they don't.
Really?
No, so I would have to go back and look at the F1 TV coverage, but I do remember that there was a session where they were talking about how that is not the case.
Schumacher and Mike, like the Schumachers? Did they
No,
do
it was something back. I want to say it was in like the 1960s or maybe the early 70s. There was one. The thing was, it was not a World Championship event.
Yeah.
So this was the first time that two brothers raced in
yeah.
the same team at the same event that was on the championship calendar. So it's very much a
that's what I
technical
mean.
point, but that is the case.
So you mean like one of the non-championship races?
One of
like
the non-championship F1 races from back in the 60s or 70s.
So kind of like, what is it called? It's like a different Italian Grand Prix they had back then. Anyways, Verstappen in qualifying, how crazy was our reaction to that when he almost lost the car on the last turn?
Yeah, that was a pretty wild moment. It was a pretty fast lap despite that, actually.
Yeah, he went fastest somehow.
At the time.
Yeah. But I was going nuts.
Yeah, but in the end, for qualifying, it was a McLaren front row, Piastri and Norris. Norris with the pole.
I felt
and
like
at that point, it looked
Ferrari-
pretty well sealed
Yeah.
that McLaren was going to get the World Championship, and man, did that change in a hurry on the first lap.
I was so amped. Lap 1 crash with Piastri and Verstappen. Verstappen made quite the crazy dive. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people think that was stupid. I actually think that was kind of fair. I mean,
No.
he took his chances.
He took a chance, but he admitted afterwards that he made a mistake. So in the race, he was saying the stewards were idiots or something like that for giving him the penalty that they did. But after the race,
fell back.
after the race, he went back and it kind of saw the error in his ways and apologized to Piastri. So fair enough, he made a mistake. He was penalized for it.
Yeah, so in the end, after that, Leclerc gains the most positions in the first lap since the Latifi in Hungary of 2021.
How many did Nicholas Latifi gain?
I believe 13. I'm just looking at my notes here. I've got a emoji of a goat just to explain it all.
Yeah, so that's most positions. Most positions gained on the first lap, but he would go on to gain even more.
He would,
And
all the way up to third
finished
place.
third after starting 19th on the grid. It was fantastic.
Amazing. Lap 1 moment, Perez spins. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but that one wasn't his fault. He got hit by Bottas.
He was hit by Bottas. Bottas did not have a clean
Yeah,
race.
Bottas had a pretty poor race.
Yeah, he did.
And I was going to mention something. I forgot what it was.
That's okay. Really, that was the only action, as far as I remember. I mean, Bottas and Magnussen did crash out, though. Both of them was those were their last races of their career, probably.
Yeah, the race itself was fairly typical of Abu Dhabi. It was a little bit of a snoozer. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was not a exciting race by any means.
Although
Despite that, there was some pretty high drama because with the Ferraris second and third, it was entirely on Lando to win the race to seal the Constructors' Championship
but if he
for
didn't
McLaren.
win it and one of the Ferraris got by him, the Ferrari would have won it.
If Sainz had gotten past Lando, Ferrari would have won until right toward the very end, Piastri did finally make it up to 10th place. So they would have tied on points at that point, and,
which would have been insane.
and McLaren would have won it.
Which they did. I'm quite disappointed, but I knew it would happen anyways.
Yeah,
Well,
so
it's all right.
Lando did win the race though in the end, and therefore McLaren won their first Constructors' Championship
Tearing
in
up.
26 years. Not really, but
It looks like you're tearing up at least.
it was a good season for them. They hung on at the end. They lost a lot of ground to Ferrari. A lot of people predicting that McLaren will be the strongest team next year. I don't think they will be. I do think that that Ferrari will be the strongest team next year. For the most part, they have been a very strong team. They made a real mistake in their development in the middle of the year that they had to correct. But these last few races, they've been the stronger outfit, I feel like.
Oh, definitely. But
So-
Red Bull dropped to third.
Red Bull did drop to third.
Crazy. Anyways,
Perez has had an awful season, and how
terrible.
he's going
I'm
to
going to go back and count how many incidents he's had this season. I'm going to go back and count.
He's scored a ridiculously low amount of points in the last 2/3 of the season.
One of the stats I actually found was if you add all the teams except for the gap between, I believe it's Sauber, if you add all the points gaps combined for all those teams, it's not even as big as the gap between Perez and Verstappen. That is absurd.
If you add the points gaps
So,
between the teams, you mean
The gap
between teammates?
Yes, gap between teammates. So if you add Ocon and Gasly's gap,
what
Hulkenberg
you
and
mean.
Magnussen's gap, all of them together,
That is kind of a crazy stat.
that is insane. That's
Yeah.
worse than all of them.
Yeah,
potentially.
that's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad.
So-
That's very bad.
Yeah, I
Anyways.
mean, I don't think that he'll be on the grid next year, which I
He
think is
won't. There's no
unfortunate.
way.
I think it's unfortunate because I think he is still a good driver, just not in that team. Verstappen has shown now 3-4 different teammates that he's just a teammate killer,
Oh my god, yes.
and yeah,
I feel like Ricciardo is still the one man that he can live up to.
I mean, I think Ricardo was possibly still could be capable of hanging onto his coattails, so to speak. But I don't think that.
I mean,
that
Cadillac's open.
what does that have to do with Red Bull and Verstappen?
Well, it has to do with Ricardo. He could land a seat at Cadillac.
I mean, potentially. I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but it's a possibility. So, anyways, Hamilton's last race for Mercedes.
Yeah, that was an emotional
so
last
emotional.
few laps and post race. That was, I'm not a Mercedes fan by any means. I kind of have been a bit of a Hamilton fan over the years, so
exactly
it's kind
the
of
same as myself.
it's neat to have him have a good recovery drive up to fourth. His pass around Russell on the last lap was awesome.
Oh, it was amazing. He also started very low.
yeah,
So
16th, I think.
Carlos Sainz's last race for Ferrari.
Yep, Sainz had his last race in the Scarlet Ferrari, at least for now. If you believe the rumor mill, he may be back in the car for 2026.
I'm pleading for that right
depending
now.
on how Hamilton fares, but we'll see.
Bottas's last race in general, quite a demoting end.
Probably his last race in F1.
But it's looking like he's going to be a reserve for Mercedes. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be, yep.
Kevin Magnussen's last race.
Yeah, he, by his own admission, is not looking to come back. It
Actually,
seems.
I've seen something. He's signed up for WEC.
Yeah, so he'll be driving sports cars with with Cadillac coming in. It's very possible that he could end up driving the Cadillac, but I think it's unlikely, but it's possible.
Or actually, yeah, I think he's driving in WEC. I also saw Logan Sargent is driving in Elms,
Yep.
which I was like, wow, I'm surprised by that.
Yep. Nico Hulkenberg had his last race for Haas as well. Now he's moving over to Sauber.
That's pretty upsetting because he was amazing in that Haas. He brought our American team so much glory.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's one of those drivers that I think you just wish that he at some point would have had a competitive car.
And scored a podium.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens when
crazy.
Porsche comes in, or not Porsche, Audi.
Porsche's coming in too. We're having
In-
Cadillac, Audi, and Porsche. Jeez.
That would be good. But when Audi take over at Sauber, we'll see what kind of car they have. But
And we've already seen from a confirmation, I think 2 days ago from Christian Horner, the only two possibilities if Perez were to be dropped would be Tsunoda and Lawson, which means this is Colapinto's last race.
yeah, so Colapinto, well, it's his last race for now.
For now.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the grid in 2026 either.
Cadillac?
Well, or somewhere. We'll see.
The weirdest thing, like this has been all over the place. Apex GP. So this is a movie team for a movie called F1. Wow. Did something really weird. So as soon as the podium was done, they brought back Leclerc right after he left. They also brought in George Russell, and they pretended that that's how the podium went.
Oh, weird.
That is so weird, isn't it?
Okay, well, that's movies for you. They do weird stuff.
They do. They really do. And then finally, this Red Bull seat confirmation wait is killing me. I want to know so bad.
Well, you already do know. Perez has a seat for next year.
Well, yeah,
Until
that's what
he
it
doesn't.
says.
Yeah, he has a seat until next year until he doesn't.
Exactly.
So we'll see how that goes.
But that is our last episode, potentially, for the year.
Well, it's our last race review for the year. We may do a season review. And thanks for listening to us this season. Thanks for listening for our first full season of doing the podcast. And
thank you so much for tuning in with us if you're actually listening to our first season.
There'll be more to come at some point in the future. We'll see what we do differently next season, if anything.
I'm so excited for Antonelli's debut. I'm such a big fan of his.
So we will see how that all goes later on. But until then, I'm Danny Kane.
And I'm Eddie Meteye-O'Kane.
This has been the Fast F1 Podcast.
Bye.
Fast F1 is produced by Danny Kane and Eddie Meteye-O'Kane. All rights are reserved. Music is performed by Alex Zavesa. Thanks for listening.